About a year ago, I was at the gym on the rowing machine next to a burly fellow named Rob. We asked each other the normal chit-chat questions, all of which were answered either with fine or good or nothing much. Then we collectively moaned about rowing, getting older, how the hardest part of rowing was the seat feeling like cold steel pushing straight into your coccyx. After these pleasantries, I lobbed the desperate conversation extending questions. Hey man, what do you do? Don't much like the question, especially in the context of a weather, sports, and traffic patterns conversation. It's too simplistic, as though your life is something you do and not someone you are. But then I think, aren't you what you do? Doesn't that define who you are? I also hate the question because it further confuses the issue of time management and self-identity, and it blunders me into seemingly paradoxical questions that only distract me from actually listening to the response to my dumb question. But I guess when your coccyx is drilling a hole through a steel plate, philosophical indictments of the English language aren't where most people's minds wander. So the question didn't much seem to faze Rob. I'm a scuba diver instructor, he said. Now, I'm not one to believe too much in biblical-like conversion stories. Life isn't as dramatic or bumbling as a burning bush or being knocked off your ass. Changing one's life is the elegant curvature of a narrative arc with imperceptible transitions through the accrual of prosaic days and decades. But when Rob said he was a dive instructor, somewhere in the depths of my mind, a little electrical pulse fired and triggered a neuron that fired again and again until Melville's opening passage trumpeted in my head with the fanfare of a great commission. With nothing in particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery parts of the world. This impulse wasn't, as Melville's Ishmael's was, to rid the November of my soul or to stop pausing before coffin warehouses. It was every bit as melodramatic as God gripping my brain and tinkering with a few chemicals and dendrites, and voila, I was singing, "Here I am, Lord." Stepping off the boat into the water is one of the bravest things I believe I have ever done. It wasn't the step Neil Armstrong made, a giant leap for mankind. But it certainly wasn't a small step for this man. Jumping off a boat into the water overcame the 50-odd times I've seen Jaws, or the hundreds of times I've watched a shark or other pelagic creature rip through a baitfish, swallowing everything but the cloud of blood left in its wake. It overcame my fears of the bottomless, the terrifying realization that below my feet was nothing. And perhaps most importantly, it overcame my own sense of smallness, my own sense of inferiority, the fear of water pounded into me by my mother, who shared one drowning story after another when I was a child. Stepping off the boat into the water was the euphoria I felt when one of my diving companions grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "You're a goddamn certified diver." And once you can do something impossible, like jumping out of an airplane and landing on your feet, or in my case, breathing underwater, you can do the next impossible thing. Maybe the next day you can take the incredibly brave step of walking into a gym, or not walking into the liquor store, or tune out the glum, tilted antagonist who thinks you should just snap out of it. Angela and I had traveled to Roatan, Honduras, one of the Bay Islands 40 miles off the coast of the mainland. The trip was meant to give me a solid week's worth of dive experience. 3 dives a day for 5 days, plus a night dive. When I first started scuba diving, I figured it would be a pretty simple affair. I thought there couldn't be much to it. After all, it wasn't anything more than swimming underwater. But after the first few dives, it was apparent there was a great deal more to know. How do you read your computer underwater? And yeah, you actually need an underwater computer. How does oxygen behave under different pressures? Why can't you swim to the surface if there's a problem? What do you do if your scuba tank comes off of your back on the bottom of the ocean, which has happened to me twice now? And probably the hardest thing to learn is how neither to sink nor float, but remain neutrally buoyant. You learn these things before you ever get wet in your certification course, and Rob did a brilliant job of teaching and testing it all. But learning how to swim in changing ocean conditions in a classroom is like undertaking a second language by rote learning. There's one thing, however, that can only be experienced, and that is awe. We've all seen underwater videos and photographs. They can be gorgeous, beautiful, and a trove of other superlatives. Underwater videos and photographs can even be awe-inspiring. But to truly be immersed, to know what it is to swim with turtles or be surrounded by a giant school of fish, or to have a snapper swim up to you and study you with the same wonderment as you look at it, you have to be submerged. Sometimes I think the universe doesn't have a point, a meaning. It doesn't even have to be. And if the universe didn't have to be, then I don't have to be. But here I am swimming with fish. I am swimming 100 feet deep, sometimes deeper. I watched a grouper swim down a staircase. I watched a fish swim down a staircase. I stay underwater for an hour breathing. Underwater breathing. And unlike when I am out and about or locked into my computer screen feeling for words, underwater I feel every breath. I feel my lungs expand, my entire body ascends. When I exhale and bubbles lift away from my regulator, my body descends ever so deeper. It is a cliche to call life a journey. In a journey, there's the setting out part, the middle long sloth of it all, and then the finish. And in between those 3 stations, there are countless other stops and starts. A degree is finished, a new job starts, and then there are the long processions of moving up the ladder, a promotion, a transfer, a pay raise, some new business title, a few more letters to tuck behind your name, another promotion, and on it goes until retirement. And it stops. Life becomes one rung after another, endlessly marching to a conceived endpoint. And then, when we realize that it's only a matter of 1 or 2, maybe 3 decades, when we realize we fought the good fight, when the race is coming to an end and we congratulate ourselves for being faithful to a single idea of ourselves, we create one more list of stops and starts, the last things to accomplish to have a meaningful life. We create our bucket list. Swimming with fish is the meaning of life. Experiencing the curiosities of fish, the beauty of fish, the amazing colors and shapes of fish, the unexpected acceptance of fish. I was once swimming in a lake and discovered an entire school of brim following me. When I stopped moving forward, they swam around me. When I started swimming again, they followed again. The point of life isn't to make every moment an epiphany, but to learn that every moment contains an epiphany. Your life is a story, and you are the reader. If you read your story with an eye for plot, for the point of it all, if you are mentally counting the number of pages held back by your right thumb in anticipation of the climax, the good part, the long narrative journey, you'll never feel the weight of a single perfect word or sentence. And there are many of them, like the sentences that made you feel the mental connection you shared with a fish as you both studied each other. Rob was a brilliant teacher, but he never really did snap his fingers and turn me into a scuba diver. I actually became a scuba diver when I was around 5 years old. My granny had some books with lots of pictures. There were 10 or more different kinds of books. One was about rocks and another was on the human body, but 2 books in particular commanded my attention more than any other. One was a book on astronomy, and the other was a book about underwater marine life. In that book, I learned about the curiosities of fish. With that book, my granny made me a scuba diver.